Hey there guys, it's Ashley Catalina here. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to be teaching you a little bit about tarot cards and I'm going to answer some questions that a lot of people, especially beginners, have about the tarot, especially tarot versus oracle cards. So that's what we're going to get into today. What is the tarot? The tarot is a 15th century divination method that people used to foresee and predict the future, as well as to gain insight into their everyday lives. Now, the history of the tarot is a bit complex and a little bit all over the place, so I may make a separate video on the history of the tarot, but just know that it's very ancient and it's been used all over the world for a really long time. Since during the 1960s, interest in the occult and spiritualism gained in popularity, so too has the tarot. Sometimes it is pronounced tarot, but it's spelled T-A-R-O-T with the T at the end being silent. Now, tarot cards are made up of two books. At least that's what most tarot readers call the two sections of the tarot. One which would be the major arcana and the minor arcana. And arcana means hidden or secret. Now here's what makes a tarot deck a tarot deck. A tarot deck always consists of 78 cards. There are a few decks that may have a few extra cards, but that's an exception. So just know that, especially if you're new to tarot, most tarot decks have 78 cards. No more, no less. In most tarot decks, the minor arcana cards contain 56 cards. And there are 4 suits: cups, wands, swords, and pentacles. In each of the 4 suits of the minor arcana, there are 4 court cards. Typically it's a king, queen, knight, and page, and then another 10 cards numbered 1 through 10, 1 usually being known as the ace. The major arcana in the tarot are what most people are typically familiar with when they think of a tarot deck. There's almost always 22 cards in the major arcana, numbered 0 to 21, 0 being the Fool and 21 being the World. The major arcana typically depict archetypes that are all over the world, and they represent major life changes or fate, if you will, that we may or may not encounter in our lives. Typically, the minor arcana cards represent everyday mundane experiences that we go through, as opposed to the minor arcana representing larger, more grand life changes or life stages. There are multiple types of tarot decks. However, most decks for beginners are based off of the Rider-Waite system. This is a classical Rider-Waite deck. So basically, in the early 1900s, there was this secret society called the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and this dude named Arthur Edward Waite decided to put together his own tarot deck based off of his system, and therefore most tarot decks today are based off of the Rider-Waite system. There's also another tarot deck system called the Thoth Tarot, and it became popularized and published by an occultist named Alister Crowley. A lot of people either tend to really like this system or absolutely hate it, which is understandable considering the weird history that Crowley has. Now, I have not personally worked with the Thoth Tarot as of yet. I would like to someday. However, what I do know is that Crowley took the Rider-Waite tarot system and basically added more symbology and hidden meanings in his own deck. So it's basically like the classical Rider-Waite tarot deck times 10. Now, as I said, in a tarot deck, there are 4 suits. The 4 suits correspond with different elements: air, water, earth, fire, as well as other meanings, but mainly it's the elements that they correspond with. The wands, sometimes they're called staves or rods, and this suit corresponds to the element of fire. Why is this? Well, think about it. Fire is represented by aggression, outward expressive energy, and a lot of times newness and inspiration. You know, when people say that, oh, I just got a spark of an idea in my head. We're kind of like where it comes from, or something like that. The suit of cups is also sometimes called the suit of chalices or vessels, and this corresponds with the element of water. So this suit is related to emotions typically, as well as relationships. The next suit is the pentacles suit, and this suit corresponds with the element earth. Sometimes they're also known as the suit of coins, shells, discs, what have you, and they often tend to represent money, grounding, sustenance, and stability. The last suit is the suit of swords, and swords relate to the element of air. This suit tends to represent the intellect, the mind, and communication. Now, tarot decks are a fixed system, which means that no matter what tarot deck you use, all the meanings are going to be the same. So the strength card in all the tarot decks that you use are basically going to have the same classic meaning. The images on the different decks and the artwork is probably going to be a little bit different depending on the deck that you use. However, the core classic meaning is going to remain the same no matter what deck that you use. Now, different creators of different decks in their guidebooks may explain some more insight into what they feel matches a certain card, which may give it a slightly different meaning from the classic Rider-Waite system. However, as I said, basically it's going to be the same no matter what deck you use. Different tarot decks have different vibes, and that may sound crazy, but it's just something that I've kind of noticed. But you do not need to have a whole bunch of tarot decks, especially if you're starting out. If you are starting out, I would suggest at least having a Rider-Waite classic deck, and maybe even another deck such as the Wild Unknown Tarot, or another tarot deck that may be a little bit more fancy than the classic medieval Rider-Waite-Smith deck that catches your eye, because then you can look at the different cards, like the different strength cards or the different High Priestess cards, and compare them to the classic imagery. Now, here's another question. What in the world are oracle cards? Aren't they the same thing as tarot? Not exactly, no. Oracle cards usually are a fluid system, meaning that they do not follow the Rider-Waite system. So each oracle deck is going to be different, and the way that you read and interpret the cards is going to be totally different according to what the author of those cards intended. This Moonology oracle deck is going to be a little bit different than an oracle deck that has a common theme of deities or flowers or something like that. Most oracle decks tend to have any number of cards. I've noticed most of them tend to have around 40. This one has 44. There are some decks that have more than that, but it's usually less cards than a tarot deck. Most oracle cards tend to be a little bit bigger than tarot cards, and they usually have a really cute back of whatever theme that they are. And then, as you can see, they typically have a really pretty image with some artwork and then a message on the bottom. Those messages and the artwork helps you interpret the meaning of those cards a little bit more intuitively. Now, oracle cards also tend to have some sort of advice or a more positive meaning than some tarot cards, because some tarot cards, like the Tower and the Devil card, tend to get a bad rep. But I will put a little disclaimer here. Those cards are not necessarily to be seen as a negative. They mainly just mean more serious topics. Some people, like myself, like to use both oracle cards and tarot cards together, because oracle cards can sometimes give some extra clarity onto a tarot reading. Alright guys, thank you all so much for watching my video. I hope that you enjoyed. If you have any other questions, please comment them down below, and I will see you all next time. Peace, love, and harmony.